I mean, I was writing it on the heels of some really serious, what felt like serious climate disasters when you were living through it. There was the massive freeze that made national news. That down in Austin, we got down to 5 degrees, and we were without power for like 3 or 4 or 5 days, just depending on where you were. And the garden was under 6.5 inches of snow, which we do not get that here. That is just unheard of. And so it was pretty astonishing. It felt pretty epic and destructive. And when the snow melted, parts of my garden looked like a fire had gone through. They were just
Mm.
what would have been evergreen. It was just brown. And those plants did die all the way to the roots. But there were other parts of my garden that stayed green because maybe they were more heavily native. And that really taught me a lesson. And
Oh,
then the parts even that had kind of burned to the ground, to the underground roots, they were still alive. And, a few months later, greenery was coming up. Plants do want to live. And if you choose the right plants, it can be far more resilient than you think when you live through one of these kind of crazy weather events. And that really was a lesson that I took home from living through that one and then an ice storm that happened the next year. The garden wants to live, and you can help it along by choosing the right plants, leaning more native, and starting to adapt your garden to maybe we're going to get these epic freezes now. Maybe we didn't used to, but the polar vortex is doing some weird things and we've got to adapt to that. And those kind of questions were what I wanted to ask these garden makers across the state, because they were the questions that I had about my own garden.